Good morning, Giants. It's been a minute since I've done this. I am going live here and you can comment and join along, but today I am reading you a story. And this comes from the Journeys of the Giants and the Smalls, the adventure of Rimi and Ritt. These are the stories that happened between when Ritt outgrew his home in the book. I don't know if you can see that right there. And when he became a giant among giants. And so many people have wondered what happened in the adventures of Rimi and Ritt when Ritt went exploring and learned how to become a giant in his world. What I'd invite you to do is this is a metaphor and it's representative of the journey of non-consciousness from the 12 journeys. So as you listen, I would highly recommend that you listen from your own point of view. Who taught you how to be in your life? Who taught you how to be in your relationships, in your career? Who taught you these things? Where did they come from? Where did you learn that? So as you listen to this metaphor, what I'd really like to hear the most is what you hear for you as you listen to this message. And so I'm going to read this verbatim today. This is the story of Layla, Ritt and Layla. This is The Journey of Non-Consciousness, book one of the Journeys of Rimi and Ritt. And so I hope you enjoy this. I'm going to post this picture up here so you can see the imagery. And let's see if this works here. Well, there we go. So this is the story of Ritt and Layla. Ritt had grown taller than he ever thought he would. He had walked among giants, sat beside Rimi in the hush between words. He had been seen, truly seen, for the first time. And still, something inside him felt small. He caught himself doing it again, walking the way he used to, same stride, same stare at the ground, same thoughts looping like tired songs. He'd left the small world, but the small hadn't quite left him. Rimi watched without speaking. Then one morning, he handed Ritt a stone wrapped in dark cloth. Wear this, Rimi said. Inside was a black river stone, cool to the touch, wrapped in gold wire and hung from a braided cord. Across its center, bold and bright, a perfect white X cut through the dark, unmistakable, unshakable. This is your reminder, Rimi said. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. You're doing what you need to be doing, and you're right on time. Ritt turned the stone in his fingers. The X shimmered faintly. It wasn't a destination. It was him. The map, Rimi said, isn't out there. You are the map. The X isn't where you're going. It's what's coming from you. Then Rimi pointed toward a quiet meadow. There's a lesson waiting. Trust it. And so Ritt, necklace around his neck, stepped forward, unsure where he was headed, but suddenly more certain of who was talking. And the meadow was quiet in the way dreams are quiet, soft, slow, listening. The path was unmarked, but Ritt knew it by heart. He had walked it before in smaller days, though he had never questioned it then. He used to take this very route without ever looking up. His feet had memorized the turns before his mind ever did. That was the first thing he noticed. The second was the silence. But it wasn't a peaceful, it was a kind of silence that hummed beneath your thoughts, just loud enough to make you wonder what you weren't hearing. And then a sound, a tune, uneven, almost childlike, a hum that floated through the grass like a forgotten lullaby. Ritt followed it to the source. She sat by a puddle, small, still, dressed in a gray that hung from her shoulders like old shadows. Her body barely moved except for her hands, which traced the same looping pattern into the dirt, around a fallen leaf, again and again and again. She didn't look up, but she hummed softly under her breath. The melody didn't repeat. It wandered, as if remembering itself one note at a time. Ritt watched her for a long moment. Then, without knowing why, he sat down beside her. My mother used to say, she began, voice thin as spider silk, don't step in the puddles or you'll sink into yourself. Ritt tilted his head. That doesn't make sense. She mirrored him, head tilt, same words, same tone. That doesn't make sense. Her voice was soft, but not her own. It echoed, like something she'd borrowed and forgotten how to return. You're copying me, Ritt said. I don't know how not to, she answered. Then she reached beneath her shawl and pulled out a small porcelain mask, faintly cracked, one eye broken, the mouth painted closed. They say I look better with it on. She didn't sound angry, just resigned, like someone who'd worn the same coat for so long that she couldn't tell where she ended and it began. Ritt didn't speak. Instead, he reached into his satchel and pulled out a wooden figure, one he'd carved months ago. It didn't look like Remy or like himself. It looked like the space between them. I made this, he said, to remind me that I can shape something real even if I'm still figuring out who I am. The girl, Layla, looked at the figure, then at the puddle, and then for the first time at herself. I echo people, their moods, their rules, their voices. I don't even know what's mine anymore. She said it like she was waking up inside the sentence. Want to play a game? Ritt asked. She glanced at him, unsure, open. It's called Whose Voice Is That? I say something, you tell me where it came from. Layla nodded, wrapping her shawl tighter, but her eyes stayed on his. Ritt spoke gently. You're too quiet to be worth listening to. Layla flinched. My aunt. Don't dream, you'll just embarrass yourself. My teacher. He paused. How about this one? I think I like my voice. Layla's hand moved to her chest, her mouth opened. I I'm not sure. Ritt leaned closer. That means it might be yours. She looked down at the mask in her lap. The cracks in its surface were beginning to look familiar. Without a word, she stood up and placed the mask gently in the puddle. It floated for a moment, just long enough to be witnessed, then slowly sank beneath the surface. Layla touched the X around Ritt's neck. It's beautiful, she said. It's true, Ritt answered. And for the first time, she didn't echo him. She just hummed. And this time, the tune felt new, like it belonged. When Ritt returned, Rimi didn't ask what he learned. He sat beside a perfectly still puddle, the surface like dark glass. With one finger, Rimi drew a single, unwavering line across the water. He watched the ripples spread, disturb the reflection, and then slowly settle back into clarity. You walk with it, he said, his eyes still on the water. Ritt nodded and listened. And what did you hear? Rimi asked. Myself, Ritt said. For the first time, beneath the noise, beneath the echoes, something quiet and real. Remi smiled. That's how it begins. Ritt didn't feel taller, but something inside him stretched, made room, opened, and he grew a little bit more. What I'd love to hear as you listen to that story is what are the non-conscious patterns that you're repeating in your life? The things that you learned along the way that you thought, this is me, this is who I am. Uh, who was that? Who taught you that? Where did that come from? Good morning, Richard. Good to see you here. We've got quite a few people here. That's awesome. So as you think about that, you can go ahead and comment. We can chat for a minute here. We're good. What do you hear for you? What's going on for you in your world? Who do you think you are? Who do you say you are? How is that controlling how you show up in the world? Um, I think for me, if I look back and go back into my development, there were a lot of voices that spoke into me. It was my culture, my society, my family, my own experiences, not understanding at the time how those experiences mold me. I felt like, I was kind of floating in the wind with whatever was blowing my way. And what I started to realize is that I don't have to keep telling or selling the same story over and over. I get to choose what narrative I share. And so that's what I'm doing today is starting to share these journeys again. I know this is how the giants and the smalls all started was by venturing out and telling my story and my journey. And I want to get back into that. And so I'm going to be sharing these stories over the next little bit here. And if they serve you, what I'd like to hear in the comments is how they serve you, what they mean for you, because they're metaphorical. They can mean whatever they want or whatever you want. And think of somebody in your world that could benefit from these messages and share it with them. Um, if you think it would serve them. Otherwise, just keep it for yourself. And so I appreciate you. Thanks for taking a moment to listen. We'll do this again and go make it a giant day. And I'll see you in the next video. Take care.